Welcome to dwarvenkegger. I'm Tanner, and today I thought we'd have a little discussion about my first beer. That's right, the beer that started it all. Like, subscribe, hit that little bell at the bottom, follow us on Instagram and Facebook for all sorts of dwarvenkegger shenanigans. And if you are looking for a way to support the craziness that happens here at dwarvenkegger, check out that Patreon. Alrighty, so I thought, hey, it'd be fun to tell a little story, have a little story time with you guys while I'm driving. I'm going to sell some Magic cards actually right now, so I got a little bit of a drive. So I thought, hey, let's have a discussion about my very first beer. All right, now we got to go back a little bit. So first of all, I'm going to start with the shocker. I, honest to God, did not drink for, hold on, just I was flopping around down there. Okay. I did not drink for 21 years, okay? My parents didn't drink, my friends didn't drink, so I really just wasn't around it. Like, I had the opportunity through some friends in, like, school and whatnot to have alcohol if I wanted, but I don't know, it just never really interested me, I guess you could say. Like, it wasn't just, like, it just wasn't a big deal to me. Like, it was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. I mean, maybe if my parents drank or like my friends did, but they just didn't. So it wasn't a big deal to me, right? So anyway, 21 years, no alcohol. After high school, I went right into college, okay? I didn't take any breaks or anything like that. And so I just never really got out of that school mentality. Well, the closer I got to 21, the more I started thinking, people started asking me, like, hey, you gonna go out drinking? I know you don't drink, but like, are you gonna go out? And I was like, yeah, I want something, but I didn't know what. Like, it sounds silly, but like I looked into it. I was like, what's available out there, you know? And so I started asking people, what do you drink? And I specifically became interested in beer. I don't really remember what exactly got me into looking into beer, but it did. And you guys know I'm a huge nerd, right? I love, I grew up playing Pokemon. I grew up playing tons of video games. I still play video games, Pokemon, Magic, D&D, all of that stuff. And what I noticed is there were very similar responses from people who drank beer opposed to any other alcohol to kind of like nerd stuff, right? Okay, so I play a ton of video games, right? So if you ask a person who plays video games, what is your favorite video game? What are they going to say to you? They're going to be like, bro, you gotta narrow it down. You can't just ask a person, what's your favorite video game of all time? Are you talking about like retro games? Are you talking about modern games? And okay, so what are you talking about? Are you talking about RPGs, first-person shooters, third-person shooters, strategy games, racing games, horror games, survival games? Like, what kind, you gotta narrow it down, right? There's so many subcategories. Well, the people that I talked to, who liked beer, they gave me one of two answers. They gave me like, I like Busch Light and that's it. Or they were like, oh my gosh, dude, you got to break it down, right? Are you talking stouts? Are you talking porters? Are you talking ales? Are you talking pilsners? Are you talking IPAs? Are you talking Hefeweizen? What are you talking about? And even like it went to like a deeper level. Are you talking about East Coast IPAs? Are you talking about West Coast IPAs? Are you talking about imperial stouts, porters? Are you talking about barrel aged stuff? Like, so immediately I got this kind of like, this seems similar to, video games and nerdy stuff and things like that. So I think that's kind of like what hooked me up, with the idea that like, hey Tanner, this whole beer thing kind of appeals to you. So I got to looking and I asked everybody, man. I was asking people I barely knew, what kind of beer do you drink and why, And like I said, I got a variety of answers, but I was most interested to the people who were telling me about their craft beer stuff. That was the most interesting stuff to me. So anyway, 21 rolls around, right? I'm at the house because I lived with my parents for like half of my college before I moved out. So I'm at the house, like I said, they don't drink, and it's the night before my birthday. Now my birthday's in late November, so we have Thanksgiving we used to have Thanksgiving at my parents' house. 30, 40 people show up. It was a huge big deal. And my wife goes, no, man, you got to stay up till midnight on your 21st birthday. You got to try something at midnight. Well, the problem with that is I live in Illinois, still do. And the problem with that is you can be 21 in Illinois and still not get served alcohol because it all has to do with your driver's license. One's vertical, one's horizontal. So if you got the wrong layout, license, it doesn't matter how old you are on it, you're not getting served alcohol, right? So even though I was 21 in that minute at midnight, I couldn't just go buy alcohol. You know, I had to go to the DMV, get a new license, and then I could buy alcohol. So I was like, well, man, this kind of sucks, right? Like, but, so we go and look in the fridge, and my uncle, who always brought way too much beer, did it again, and he left some in the fridge. So I'm like, oh, sweet, I'm going to get some beer. Except it was Michelob Ultra. Now, I'll just go ahead and say, if Michelob Ultra is your jam, you're like, I love that shit, good for you, whatever. I feel differently. So anyway, midnight rolls around, click, clack, crack open a Michelob Ultra, and I was so let down, right? Because in my head, I had read about beer, right? I did research, right? This was not just like a fly by the seat of your pants kind of situation. I wasn't even concerned with like the effects of alcohol as much as I was wanting to try beer specifically. So I look into all these different beers and everything like that, and then my first beer is Michelob Ultra. It was watery. It was like, it just tasted like drinking water that had like a beer flavor to it. I was let down, right? And so I finished it because, you know, 21, woo, party. Wasn't really getting trashed off of I'm a decently sized guy. Nobody's getting trashed off Michelob Ultra. So, but at that moment, something happened. Something happened. And I told myself, it's got to be better than this. There's got to be something I'm missing, right? Because even though I knew Michelob Ultra wasn't craft beer per se, I knew that I was missing something. This is not, when I talked to other people, they were talking about hops and barley and malt, and they're talking about like all these flavor profiles, and I'm like, I got none of that shit from some Michelob Ultra I just drank. What's the deal? And so from there, it kind of ignited this like quest, right? Let's get nerdy on you. It ignited this quest in my mind that I'm like, I need to go find a good beer, right? I need to go find a beer that I like. I need to get out there. I need to experience the world of beer. I need to find out what the hell's going on. And so the easiest entry into that in my mind at this time was, like I said, it was late November, early December at this time. There's a lot of seasonal packs, right? Landon Kugels does a lot of that stuff. Blue Moon does seasonal packs. Sam Adams does seasonal packs. I mean, hell, just about everybody really does them now. And so that's how I started getting into beer. And then I was just, it was crazy. That's, you know, it's not that I was drinking heavily, but every time I went out, I tried a new beer. Every time I was in the supermarket, I would pick up a beer, right? You know, just to kind of see what it was all about. And it's weird because, you know, we can talk about the white elephant in the room, but I mean, people drink because it makes you feel super, right? But for me, I never associated beer with getting drunk. Now, that's not to say I haven't been tipsy and or drunk off beer before, because it's definitely happened. But to me, that's not what I associated with it. What I associated beer with was this exploration, you know, this particular like brand, and I just got all into it, you know. And you know, it's kind of funny, but at the time I didn't think about it, but I've always been kind of pointed in the direction of doing a channel when it came to beer, you know. Now, granted, I didn't look at YouTube or anything like that when I first started drinking beer, but man, it would have been great if I would have just taken the time and kind of sat down and got a casual beer drinker's perspective. That truck's not gonna let me over on beer, you know. So anyway, that's how I got into beer. You know, I got into beer because my first beer was shitty, you know. So like I said at the beginning of the video, the simple answer's kind of lame. I had a Michelob Ultra, but that Michelob Ultra ignited a fire and a passion that I now have for beer, and that I now have for not only just beer, but good beer, you know. And that's not to say that since drinking that Michelob Ultra, I've not had a Michelob Ultra. Hell, I drank one of those Corona Premiers the other day, which is supposed to be kind of the competitor if you will, for Mick Ultra. But you know, overall, my heart's with craft beer, and yeah. So I mean, but that's how I got started. I'd love to hear your stories of how you guys got into beer, good beer, bad beer. Tell me in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Of course, like, subscribe, hit that little bell at the bottom. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook for all sorts of dwarvenkegger shenanigans. Don't ever take your hands off the wheel. And if you're looking for a way to support us, then check out that Patreon. All right, guys, till next time, cheers.